Hello and welcome to Performance Check. My name is Rob, and we return once again to the D&D Retrospective of Red Hand of Doom. Usually when we do another installment of this series, I do a bit of a recap. But given the nature of this part of the campaign, as far as I can tell, this part is effectively decided by the actions of all that has come before. For, as it is accurately titled, and as we will show, on the screen there, it is entitled Enemy at the Gates. And that is because this time we are going to be examining what happens when the Red Hand Horde finally make it to the gates of Brindol, the capital of the Elsir Vale. And we're really going to be talking a lot about what decisions have been made leading up into this point. And we are served very well with the introductory text of this chapter. By the time the PCs have destroyed Skull Gorge Bridge, ruined the razorfiend hatchery in Rhest, and returned the Ghostlord's phylactery, the Red Hand should have very nearly reached the city of Brindol, burning towns as they march along the Dawnway, and driving an increasingly large wave of refugees before them. The hobgoblins pause for a few days before launching their main attack on the walled city. Unlike the towns that have come before, Brindol has not only fortifications, but also a substantial standing army, ready and willing to defend the city. This part of the adventure presents the climactic confrontation between the Red Hand Horde and the humans of Elsir Vale. By taking part in these events, the player characters can help turn back the Horde. If they are successful here, and if they manage to stymie the Horde at key points earlier in the adventure, they might just save the day. This is exactly what I was trying to communicate. This whole part is going to be a recapping of the actions of previous sessions. This is effectively going to be the consequences of those actions. How well have you prepared? Have your victories been enough to buy you time to win the day? And as before, I'm going to try and avoid reading every single line of text. I urge you to go and buy this, if you have not already. If you ever buy one D&D product in your life, other than maybe the core books, I would say it should be this module. And while I'm not going to be reading all of the text, I'm going to be reading a lot of the text for this one because this is very specific, and of course we're dealing with lots of different consequences. It's important to try and keep track of it. So let's talk about the days before the battle. The first refugees to reach Brindol were those from Drellin's Ferry, remember that? Led by townspeaker Whiston and Soran Initar. They wasted little time contacting the city's leader, Lord Kurdan Jarmath. At first, Lord Jarmath didn't fully believe their tale, but he couldn't ignore the proof of thousands of hungry evacuees on the stoop of his city. When the victims came coming, he was forced to accept the truth. War had come to the Vale. And who had brought that war? Why, the High Wormlord. During the period where the player characters will hopefully arranging treaties with the elves. Do you remember the Tiri Quarter elves with the owls, their guardian owls, and breaking others between the Red Hand. Others, it's saying others there, breaking oaths between the Red Hand and the Ghostlord, I think that should say. So yes, of course, the Ghostlord that we all agreed should have just been called the Lion Lord. Really big on lions, and definitely ghostly, but the lions, the Lion Temple, the ghost lions, he was all about the lions. So anyway, with all of those things that the player characters have hopefully been arranging, Lord Jarmath set things into motion. He kept Town Speaker Whiston and Captain Serrano close to his side as advisors, and from them he learned as much about the player characters as he could. He hired a small but skilled group of dwarf mercenaries to stiffen the city's defences, and he set Brindol's army, the Lion Guard, more lions, to reinforcing the city's defences and recruiting every able-bodied man and woman into the militia. Of course, we learned that the Lion Guard were kind of influenced by like the pacts between the lion-based culture in the desert. The task of organising the fortifications and seeing to the housing and feeding of a growing throng of fearful refugees was like nothing the former adventurer had ever experienced. The most humbling moment for him was when he realised that the Lion Guard could not possibly fortify the town in time, forcing him to call for the aid of Varasa Karl, the leader of House Karl, Brindol's greatest mercantile house and his greatest political rival. Lady Karl keeps a personal army, bodyguards, to protect her interests, and Lord Jarmath had no choice but to deputise that force, validating House Karl's underhanded dealings in a way that he had never hoped to. As the horde marched east, razing the towns of Terrelton, Nimon Gap, and Talar, the number of refugees continued to grow, and stories have begun to spread from stragglers who barely managed to escape the horde's savage advance, and panic threatens to break out. So, from what we can gather here, the threat of the Red Hand of Doom is causing strife amongst various parties within the city that have their own political interests. And even in a crisis such as this, it seems that Lord Jarmath having to lean on his political rivals. It's already conjuring a number of diplomacy missions, in my mind at least. Imagine the player characters arriving in Brindol in time to learn that rather than everyone preparing to defend the walls against the Red Hand of Doom, they are in fact political squabbles going on. Imagine that being your first mission, perhaps, as a party of players arriving in this place. It was at this time that Jarmath made another decision he had hoped never to face. He ordered the evacuation of Brindol. He and Lady Karl selected a small group of their most reliable soldiers and mercenaries to form the Company of Last Resort. This group would provide an escort and guard for the refugees on their march to the east, to Denovar. There they would seek shelter and there bring word of the coming horde. Lord Jarmath hoped that by evacuating all non-essential citizens, he could at least save their lives, even if the horde razed their homes. That's an interesting point. So we're effectively dealing with a ghost city when the players arrive. And as it says, thus when the PCs arrive in Brindol, they find the town empty. Many shops and houses have been boarded up. Marketplaces have been converted into training grounds. Streets into patrol routes. Men watch from the city walls, while others toil in the orchards and farmlands surrounding the city, gleaning what early harvest they can in case of a siege, digging trenches and raising palisades of sharpened logs. And again, this is one thing that this module teaches us time and time again, is that the actions of previous chapters of our story are rolling into the next, and we are witnessing a world fully affected by the ominous threat of our antagonists. Constantly having the world be a mirror to the antagonists' actions is probably the best lesson you could learn in being a dungeon master, I think. And it's never easy to do, but this is it's a masterclass in it, to be fair. If the PCs come to Brindol on their own without having been summoned by Lord Jarmarth, it won't be long before they're recognised, and tales of their accomplishments have already spread throughout the soldiers. And they have become symbols of hope to the beleaguered folk of Brindol. Not only are you reflecting the actions of the antagonists, you're also using the world to reflect the actions of the player characters. And here, you're able to say, listen, these guys have been the only thing that's been effective against the Red Hand of Doom, and it's only by their actions that they're not here already. So, it works both ways. A mirror has a subject and a reflection, of course. There's some text that you read to the players in this section. It is impossible to miss the fact that Brindol is a city at war, even though, as yet, there are no smouldering fires of war-torn battlefields. Soldiers toil in what only a few weeks ago were idyllic orchards and productive farms, digging trenches, raging watchtowers, and securing wooden palisades. The city is almost completely surrounded by a 20-foot-high wall of stone. The only stretch not protected in this way is the section along the river that marks the city's northern boundary. 2 bridges cross the Elsir and connect the city with the river's far bank. The highest point in town is a hill nestled in the southeastern quadrant. A large, well-built keep of stone surmounts this hill, its majestic towers rivaled by the presence of a nearby grand cathedral. Despite the city's size, the streets are strangely silent and empty. Patrols of soldiers march down the roads, but there is little sign of the Norman mercantile activity one might expect. Upon closer inspection, it seems that many of the town's buildings have been boarded over. War indeed has come to Brindol. So, both the text describing the situations of the DM and the exposition to the players is rich and really enjoyable to read. Now, key sites. This is going to be really interesting, and we're not going to go through all of the key sites because, as you can see, looking at the screen here, there are a number of key sites. But of course, it would not be a chapter of the Red Hand of Doom without a glorious map to examine. And as you can see, this is the city of Brindol. And behold, we have the map of Brindol as a separate image, so we can refer to that on the screen whilst we read through the module. So as an example, let's look at Area 1 and compare it to what's on the map. And just looking at Area 1, if you look at the screen, is right at the top there. So let's have a look at one of these key sites, the city gates. Fitting as we've just been talking, arriving there. So Brindol's gates serve as a dual purpose. They control foot traffic into the city, and they serve as garrisons for many of the city's guards. A city gate can house 24 guards comfortably, and 4 in times of need. Visitors to the city can enter without paying taxes, but merchants and obvious adventuring parties must pay a gate tax of 1 silver piece per person to enter the city. It's such a classic trope about entering a large city that you have that moment in a game where you queue to get in and you get questioned by the city guard. And the city guard, I imagine, in a time of war are going to be extra vigilant, and all sorts of fun may arise. But we're going to keep referring back to these sites as we move on, because as we explore the different events it refers back to the parts of the map. So I can tell anyway. As usual, dear friends, we are going through this as if we intend to run it. But to not get set in my ways, this is just me discovering this for the first time. So while I know the broad strokes of this chapter, much of the detail will allow me to explore it as if I'm going to run it. That's the idea of these videos. So let's see how we're going to run the enemy at the gates. Let's see if we can, because all of this as we scroll past here is examination of the different places. So let's just say that the player characters, and we'll quickly make sure that the map stays here, but so I can move it around, let's put it over here for now. Because we come to quite an important thing. We were talking about, listen, the guards are going to immediately suggest that the players' characters, the hypotheticals that have done so much against the Red Hand, they're going to insist that they have an audience with Lord Jarmath himself. When the PCs arrive at Brindol, they are quickly ushered to the great hall of Lord Jarmath's keep to meet with the leader and discuss Brindol's defence. Possibly by someone they have met before, so they have a reason to trust them, such as Sorana Edita, or a line of Brindol, such as Tayani Sura. As they enter the gate hall, read the following. The low murmur of a dozen muted conversations falls silent as the great double doors of the southern end of this great hall are opened by a pair of guards for your passage. The room beyond is a large chamber, the floors polished smooth and the walls set with many alcoves, each containing a trophy or work of art. Seen the bleeding alcoves? The ceiling rises to a cavernous height of nearly 40 feet, and deep-set narrow windows reach nearly to that height along the northern wall. A single long table dominates the middle of the room, its surface covered with books, maps, ledgers, parchments, sketches, drinks, and plates of half-eaten food. So Lord Jarmath has converted his great hall into a war room, and he and his allies have spent long hours here, taking their meals as they work out endless scenarios of Brindol's defence. The purpose of this meeting is twofold. The Defence Council wants to learn all it can about what the PCs have discovered in their battles in the field, and at the same time they want an opportunity to observe the player characters and decide if these are indeed the heroes Brindol have been looking for. Present at this meeting are Lord Kurdan Jarmath, Lady Vesera Karl, Captain Lars Ulverth, Tradora Goldenbrow, and Sorana Anita and Nora Wiston are here as well, having stayed behind from the latest evacuation to serve Jarmath as advisors. Finally, the player characters secured an alliance with the Tiri Kator Elves. Celeria Starsinger is here representing her people. Even if the Shining Axe Dwarves, see page 44, have arrived, so that's the mercenary camp we heard about, Captain Helmbreaker is not present. I like that name. I wonder what he does. He's not present at this council, it being his philosophy that a mercenary should follow his employer's orders, in this case Lord Jarmath, not decide what the orders should be. How very interesting. How very interesting indeed. And how admirable of the Captain Helmbreaker to place his faith in the command of Lord Jarmath and the player characters. The easiest way to run this audience is to break it down into 4 phases. During all 4 phases, the council members offer their commentary as indicated. If the player characters present themselves well and offer sound advice, they have a chance not only to improve the morale of Brindol's movers and shakers, and thusly improve the morale of the city's defenders as a whole, but also to prevent unnecessary deaths that would have resulted from poor tactics. Which can happen, mistakes are made. So phase 1 is the introductions, and again, not going to read every word, but we're going to try and assess what's happening here. So phase 1 is an introduction, and we already know from going through this text here who those movers and shakers are. So, and it gives a description of how they act in this council, which I really like. I like the fact that we are being given sort of a tutorial in council at this time. So Lord Jarmuth acts overly welcome, and is obviously glad to have the PCs here. Lady Carr remains observant, but mostly silent. We'll probably learn about their political motivations later on. As Jarmuth's rival, she is predisposed towards skepticism on any subject Jarmuth is passionate about. Very good, so they are arguing there. Captain Lars Olverth observes the PCs with a keen interest, and he asks for more details, and basically wants to know about their fighting skills. Goldenbrow, Tredora Goldenbrow, seems unimpressed with the player characters, apart from if there's any obvious worshippers of Pelor. Okay, fair enough. A bit biased to the sun, but we could all do with a bit of sun here and there. Let's see, and then there's Sarana Anita and Speaker Whiston are always glad to see the player characters, and then there's Celeria Starsinger, who we're going to say is there, because I remember us reading through that and agreeing that having those owl-flying elves on our side is nothing but a good thing, because if you did really well, you also have owls, which might be quite helpful in this battle. Never underestimate a giant owl. If there's anything that we've learned, dear friends, watching this video, if there's anything we've learned, it is that things always go better for you if you've got a giant flying owl on your side. Then phase 2 of this council meeting is the battle plans. And this is really involved, and it's pretty cool that it's putting it out there what the plans are. Let's see. Once the PCs have had their say, Lord Jarmuth tells them that he and the rest of this hastily collected defence council have spent the last several days outlining the possible plans to defend Brindol when the attack comes. Okay. So they debated for a long time about the initial assault, and they've narrowed things down to one of two options. Lord Jarmuth wants to meet the horde in the fields outside of the city walls. That doesn't seem like a very good idea, Lord Jarmuth, if you don't mind me saying. He hopes that this tactic will slow down the horde's advance, and, if successful, keep much damage from being done to the city itself. Captain Olverth argues that this tactic will cost many lives. The horde outnumbers Brindol's forces so greatly that to meet them on equal ground would be foolish. He maintains that the army should use the city walls and buildings as fortifications. Let the horde expend precious resources battering down walls and houses, while the defenders focus on defence rather than fight at a disadvantage in the field. The other three are undecided on what the better tactic is. They don't want Brindol's buildings to take any damage, but at the same time they don't want to put the army at unnecessary risk. The PC should become involved in this discussion and this decision and encourage them to pick a side and argue for it. They should choose whichever side they prefer, but for a force as badly outnumbered as the defenders, the tactic of using the city's walls and buildings for cover is more sound than the tactic of meeting the enemy on open ground. I don't know if it's just my history in games, but I've played with some people that are, like... There's no way, I can't think of anyone that I've ever played with, and I'm not saying this to be like elitist or whatever, I just don't see how anyone could think that that would be a good idea in that scenario. Why would you not use your city's walls? The reason that the city has walls to begin with is for this express purpose. They're absolutely right that that they should use the walls to defend the city, and to make the Red Hand smash against it like water on rock, to quote Theoden. That's what it's there for. So really, I might completely negate that bit of that argument from that meeting, because I immediately am now questioning the credentials of Lord Jarmuth. I see him as a fool that is obsessed with honor, to meet them in the field. Meet them in the field? I'm sorry, that's really taking me aback. I didn't expect that. Why try? What's the good of protecting the buildings if there's none living to occupy them? Lord Jarmuth is sure his army can meet the horde, mostly because of his pride in his soldiers and his confidence as a former adventurer. Convincing him otherwise takes a DC 20 diplomacy check. That's absurd. But you know what? I think that could present drama in its own right. Perhaps Lord Jarmuth leaning that way might make them, there's definitely conflict to be had there and then. And of course, Lady Carl, who is the political rival, is obviously going to disagree. So that weirdly puts them on her side in whatever position that she takes here. So she doesn't want to risk her personal guard imperiled by the battle. Well, I'm sorry, but everyone's imperiled, so once again, you're going to have to argue with her as well to commit her forces. Captain Ilvoth knows that while the soldiers are dependable and well-trained, they're also vastly outnumbered. So it's an opposite check to convince them to take troops to the field. Wow, and Tredora wants to support her lover's zeal and faith in his troops, but in her heart she feels the best option is to abandon Brindol entirely and fall back to meet the horde at Donovar. Convincing her to condone a field battle or agree to defend the walls requires a DC 20 diplomacy check. So no one's on board with anyone. They've all got their own different opinions. So you have to come in and unite them. Celerius Starsing automatically agrees to aid in Brindle's defence if at least 3 other members of the council opt for the city wall defence. Yeah. You know what? I think it's really important to use those walls, and I think it's important to meet the Red Hand of Doom at the city walls, personally. Because at this stage, if you think about it, sure, the player characters destroyed the bridge and slowed them down at Drellin's Ferry, and sure, there may no longer be a pact between the Ghostlord, the Lion Lord, and the High Worm Lord. They still have basically just wrecked through Elsir Vale. It said, anything that you've achieved in this campaign it just buys you time. It does not buy you guarantees. And really, this will be the first time that there's been any real full-on martial defense of the land. And I think we can all agree the time is now. So the phase 3 of the council is the members of the defence council don't initiate any conversation about what their plan would be if Brindle walls fall. This reluctance is due to a combination of pride and optimism, and a superstitious belief that even mentioning the possibility that Brindle's walls won't be able to keep out the horde is enough to risk its happening. Guys, you've got to wake up. You've got to wake up. I know. We've established that the citizens of the city have evacuated, but this really is pretty much your only chance to stop the High Worm Lord in battle. If the subject is brought up, the Defence Council grows silent for a moment while each member considers the options. Allow the PCs to take the lead here and develop a plan for the city's defence if the horde gets inside. What will happen at the end of the first battlefield event, right? Because we're going to be talking about battlefield events very shortly. And yeah, that's a really good point, that just because your city walls have fallen, that means we're going to go into urban combat, effectively, where alleyways and city streets become bottlenecks and flanking positions, and all sorts of messiness happens once the armies get inside the walls. And as it says, no correct solution exists here without the PC's intervention. The Defence Council decides to build numerous barricades along major streets, block off alleyways, station small groups of soldiers inside buildings to serve as snipers, and utilise guerrilla tactics, and use Cathedral Square as a central marshalling point. which is pretty cool, and also really rad because like the player characters can look up, and anywhere they see the cathedral, they know that's where they got to get to. So it's a really smart idea to have like a physical landscape be your marshalling point, so everyone around the city can look up, and even if they're surrounded by high walls, they will see the great cathedral. Really cool. Really makes sense, and it's well thought out. It's just a legitimately well thought out plan that for when they get in, and when is clearly the optimum word there. So what the council won't be able to decide is how to utilize the precious few clerics remaining in town, which is always a good question, isn't it? Like, if you have loads of clerics, surely you can just keep healing your forces, but there aren't many clerics with very few spell slots. Lord Jarmuth would rather station them all in the Cathedral of Pelor, transforming the site into a battlefield hospital while defending the town's clerics from harm. Smart, I'd say. Lady Carl and Captain Ulvoth want to station the clerics at key points throughout the city so their healing skills and magic are more accessible, and to prevent a catastrophic loss of healing support if the horde manages to somehow assault the cathedral. Sure. And Starsing and Tridora are unsure of that. I mean, I wouldn't be sure what to do there. I think I would probably opt for having the clerics. I would probably opt for having the clerics stationed at key points rather than have them all at one place, because then that means to get any kind of divine healing or their power, it's all focused in one area. And while you won't want to be spread too thin, you also want the benefits of that healing in the immediacy of the event. To optimize the defense. That would be my argument. But if you disagree with me, don't hesitate to let me know in the comments. And of course, if you have thoughts on how you would differ in your preparations of defending Brindol, please let me know in the comments. I've loved hearing people's reactions to this series, and I think there will be a lot of disagreements about how one should defend Brindol in this case. So I would love to hear if you do disagree, or if you agree. How would you defend against the Red Hand of Doom? So Lord Jarmuth has a not-so-hidden reason for wanting to keep the clerics safe in the cathedral. He doesn't want to risk his lover Tridora on the streets. This guy! He's so selfish. He's thinking about his own personal honour, and now he's thinking of his beloved Tridora. Well, have you asked Tridora how she feels about the situation? Jarmuth? You big blouse. Lady Carl is all too eager to point out, yeah, listen, I think I'm on board with Lady Carl. I really do think I'm on board with Lady Carl. Lady Carl feels that placing all the clerics in the cathedral makes it too difficult to reach them in emergencies. Convincing her to agree with this arrangement takes... Yeah, I'm with her. I'm so on board. I'm all for Lady Carl. Captain Ulvoth has the best interests of his soldiers at heart, and he believes that the clerics being spread out through the town to help save more lives. So effectively, we rock up, and all we do is disagree with Lord Jarmuth. I wonder if there's enough tension there to potentially put Lord Jarmuth in the crosshairs of the player characters, because at the moment, all he wants to do is make decisions that will lead to the bitter end of Brindol and, by extension, Elsir Vale. What is he doing? Tridora is torn. She wants to protect her clerics, but she's sick of the thought of leaving the soldiers on the fringe of the battle. Well, yeah, tell her, well, your beloved, the Lord Jarmuth himself, has forbidden the clerics to go out into the battle for fear of losing you in the fray. That's pretty cool drama, I will say. As much as I'm disagreeing with Lord Jarmuth, that's sort of like the point, I guess, is that like you then are encouraged to like make active, encouraging decisions. No, we have to think about this differently if we're to survive. And then let's talk about phase 4 of the council. Eventually the question of what the PCs will do to aid the battle comes up. That is a very good point. What are these very powerful player characters going to contribute to the battle? On this matter, every member of the Defence Council is in agreement. The PCs are among the strongest allies Brindol has, and as a result, these leaders hope that the characters will serve as skirmishers in the war, moving from battle to battle and providing support to key locations as the need arises. And it's interesting that this comes up here and now. We're actually just starting a game where battlefield tactics is at the forefront of the opening stages of the game that I will talk about more at some point. But it's going to be on the channel, so keep an eye out. To facilitate this strategy, Lord Jarmuth has asked Stahl the Red to prepare several scrolls of Rari's telepathic bond. Immortal can form a telepathic link between himself and up to 3 other people. Lord Jarmuth would like these three others to be himself, one of the other council members, and one of the player characters. With this 4-way link active, he helps to be able to keep the PCs updated on where they are needed the most. That's really cool. That gives listen, it's one of the challenges, isn't it? It's in medieval, whether it be a fantasy medieval setting or whatever, the time it takes to communicate across large distances, and that of course is a great way, sending stones and things like that are something that the player characters will likely have at this point anyway. They may have means of having telepathic bonds. I think it would be important to have the player characters all be able to talk to each other. I know it would add as an extra challenge to the battle, perhaps, that only one of the player characters can stay in touch with Lord Jarmuth, but I think for such a massive and complicated conflict that we're about to explore I think the more communication you have, I think you should be encouraged to communicate, basically, is what I'm trying to say. So I would have that telepathic link probably encompass all of the player characters. And if it makes it too easy for them down the line, well, fair enough. Maybe you can think of some other ways to make that a challenge. They still may have to split up to keep the city safe, of course. So we're looking at phase 4 here. Let me move that map out of the way just for the moment. Let's put that over here. There we go. So yeah, so this is what they're doing then. So this guy's given them this telepathic link. With this 4-way link active, he hopes to keep the pieces updated where they are needed most. Allow the player characters help in deciding who gets the 4th telepathic link. Lord Jarmuth would like it to be Tredora, but Lady Carl and Captain Olverth both become increasingly vocal with their desires to be the one who should receive the 4th link. See, that's cool. So maybe it's a case of, listen, the player characters, because they're so aligned, they all can hear into it, but you only can choose only a few of the council members, perhaps. So maybe, actually, you could just increase the amount of people that are a part of this link. So then it's up to the player characters if they choose to be within that link, or whether they opt to allow more of the council members of Brindol in on that advantage. What do you think? Please let me know in the comments. Again, is it vital that all the player characters know this? Or are in that, like I say, they might have other means of communicating with each other, but we will see. So and it gives a diplomacy check on the defense that agrees with the player's suggestion. Otherwise, the last telepathic link ends up going to Lady Carl, which again I think I probably agree with. Well, probably maybe Captain Olverth, actually, because he appears to be like the practiced commander. So I would say let's maybe go with him, perhaps. But perhaps that'll affect what happens later on. So, when the day grows late, or when the players seem to get tired of the meeting, Lord Jarmuth calls for the council to close for the evening. He offers to put the PCs up in rooms in his keep since all the local inns are closed, and Lady Carl offers a room in her manor to any PC who has favourably impressed her. Depending on the timeline, the player characters might have days or only hours before the attack comes, so allow them to use this time as they see fit, and feel free to let them have encounters or conversations in the meantime with various members of the Defence Council. Each of the named members has his or her own agenda and interests and can have private reasons for seeking to gain the player character's friendship. Player characters should also have a chance to meet other local notables: Alandri, Andraki, Len, Eldremmer, the Teskawils, and others. I don't know who the Teskawils are, but they've got a delightful name. Great. Yeah, so at this point we have the really cool time where it's like the what does Gandalf say? The deep breath before the plunge. It's the calm before the storm. It is the night before the Battle of Brindol, which is pretty exciting. So I think let's delve into this then. The battle itself. Let me move the map over here again. We are going to refer more to that map, I do promise, but we're still in the setup, and really this is the beginning stages of the battle. Oh no. Oh no. Remember how many forces that the Red Horde have. Remember that the Worm Lords command immense forces. The hobgoblins and their ilk have dark vision or low light vision, and the bulk of Brindol's defenders do not. So the Defense Council assumes that the Horde plans to attack when the goblinoids can use this advantage at night. Very clever. Good bit of writing, remembering what creatures we're predominantly fighting here. Of course they'll attack at night. Why wouldn't they? As it turns out, they're right. Wormlord Khan plans on mounting the initial attack on Brindol 2 hours after sunset. Brindol's defenders have at least the light of the stars and the full moon to see by, shadowy illumination when the attack begins. Eventually the sound of massive dragon bone horns pealing through the air, accompanied by a rising and thunderous roar, announces the event Brindol has come to fear. The Red Hand is on the march. The Red Hand hath come. The Red Hand's plan of attack is organised in 5 stages, detailed below. The actions of the player characters can disrupt these stages. They are presented here as they would play out if the player characters weren't on hand to aid in Brindol's defence. That's really cool. So, and again, I've always complimented on how well laid out and organised this module is. But as we can see in the module here, we have the 5 stages of the battle. So let's go over the 5 stages of the battle, and then we're going to look into some in-depth encounters within the battle. So stage 1. Wormlord Khan orders the Horde's advance on Brindol. If the Defense Council decided to station soldiers outside the walls, several massive clashes occur in the outlying farms, with heavy losses among the defenders. As this occurs, 2 groups of hill giants, functioning as living catapults, begin bombarding the city walls with hurled boulders. So if you were stupid enough to leave your forces outside of the city walls, like a moron, then yes, you have heavy losses. However, dear viewers of this video series, I don't believe we would have done that. If you disagree with me, let me know. But I don't think there's a sane player among us that would put those forces in front of the walls. Okay, let's just be real here. Stage 2. The Horde wheels towards one of the gaps in the city wall defences created by the giants and prepares to enter the city. So at some point, those walls are going to fall. The player characters can't be everywhere all at once. So we're sort of assuming that, you know, the walls are going to help thin the levels of the Horde, but really eventually those hill giants are just going to smash through the city walls. The horde wheels towards one of the gaps in the city walls defences created by the giants and prepares to enter the city. The red dragon Abithriax descends on the city elsewhere and begins wreaking havoc, hoping to distract defending forces away from the breach in the wall. Oh my god. This is the problem when you're fighting an army that has dragons on its side. Dragons don't need to break through city walls. Dragons can just fly into the city and just start laying waste. And Abithriax, a red dragon. Put it this way, I know where I'm sending the player characters. Because armies don't kill dragons in D&D, adventurers do. So, stage 2 is Abithriax descends. Stage 3, if we ever reach that point, the horde starts its full-scale invasion of the city. Not even then, oh my goodness! It travels along the doorway, pressing deep into Brindol in an attempt to reach the cathedral and keep. Whew. Stage 4, the horde establishes a foothold in Brindol's marketplace and regroups there prior to staging a new attack on the city's cathedral and keep. Scather, one of the horde's most dangerous skirmishers, critically injures several key defenders in sniping attacks. Wow, we got a proper sniper on our hands. And then stage 5. Wormlord Khan personally leads an assault on the Cathedral of Palor, hoping to raze the structure to the ground, and not only rob Brindle of one of its most beloved landmarks, but remove the defenders' clerical support. After stage 5, you should determine if the Red Hand has been victorious or not. If it has, the horde moves up uncontested to take Brindle Keep, while the remaining defenders escape to the east, retreating in the direction of Denevar. If the Red Hand has been defeated, the horde breaks up and scatters, temporarily dispersed until High Wormlord Azar Kul can gather it again. A task which takes a matter of weeks, not months or years, and lead a new and even more devastating attack on Brindle. One the PCs have little hope of defeating. Oh my god! Okay. Again, just to praise the fact that this module has so neatly put it into different stages. But look, if you look at those different stages, those are just divided into encounters, aren't they? Stage 1, if you were stupid enough to put your forces outside the walls, that would sort of be like an introductory moment where you're showing at a distance the power of the Red Hand of Doom. Like, you're showing the horde that you have long foreshadowed now just incite its most devastating attack upon the fools that stand outside of their defences. Honourable fools! But then stage 2, we have a Bithriax, so we have a dragon fight. We have a full battle against the forces of the horde in the alleyways and in the streets of the city. We then have a hunt for Scather, like a really important enemy combatant that is taking out key leaders. So you have to take on a sniper somewhere, and then of course face the Wormlord Khan in effectively a boss battle. Not that a red dragon or a deadly sniper isn't a boss battle in its own right. So, now that we have those stages in our mind, now that we have established the rough layout of how this battle is going to transpire, we're going to look at some of the resources that we have at hand. Battlefield resources. When Brindle's armies clashes with the Horde, the PCs take part in a number of events that play to their strengths as skirmishers and adventurers. Between these events, the characters have a few minutes to recover, recuperate, and prepare for what's next. The Defense Council need most of Brindle's soldiers and resources to support the main army, but if you think the player characters need some help, then some of these resources can be put into their disposal. So they have reinforcements. The characters are allowed to call upon 4 Lions of Brindol during the battle. Each of these is a level 4 fighter, human fighter, and they'll help the PCs in any way they can. If Tenyani Sura still lives, then she is one of the 4. The PCs must decide how many of these fighters they want to use before any of the events begin. Any fighters who survived previous attempts can be carried over to new events. Okay, so if they live in one, they come over to the next. Here we go. If the PC secured an alliance with the Tiri-Kator elves, they can be assigned 4 giant owls and 4 Tiri-Kator hunters to use in a similar manner. So if Kiliar, Arrowswift, and Trilara Night Shadow are still alive, one of them is among the 4, while the other commands the wild elf contingent in the battle. Oh, this module is just so cool. Can you imagine? Can you imagine Abithriax the Red Dragon, just soaring over the city, doing a smaug, laying waste, and then 4-player characters are flying down the alleyways of the streets like X-Wings of the Death Star trench, like evading dragonfire and then rising up and striking and then going back into the cover of the city. 4 adventurers mounted on aerial aerial mounts fighting the Red Dragon. That's 100% how I would play that battle. I would have them suggest you can't possibly hope to get close to the Red Dragon without the aid of the owls that you earned in a previous chapter. Oh my god, that would be so cool. Magic items. Magic items. Many of Brindle's shopkeepers, merchants, and adventurers have donated potions, scrolls, and wands to the cause. The PCs are allowed to draw upon these resources to a limited extent. Any potions, scrolls, or wands described in the Dungeon Master's Guide are available. Wow, any. In any quantity or combination, as long as the total value does not take over the course of the 5 battle events does not exceed 5,000 gold pieces. Ooh, you could spend that really quickly with what's available in there. So, fair enough. That's quite cool. Listen, yeah, you're going to need to give them time to rest and recuperate, get health. Spells are obviously going to be critical. If you have any magical characters, you're going to have to go into this thinking, how the hell am I going to conserve my spell slots? Because remember, we're talking about 3.5 here, where short rests aren't a thing. So there's no arcane recovery to speak of. There are other ways of bringing back your spells and things like that, but overall, we're talking about a less forgiving system in terms of recuperation. How much health you get back when resting, for example. So yeah, definitely would pay to be kind. In what resources they have, because if they're having to fight the entire night, encounter after encounter, if they're fighting a lethal skirmisher, a worm lord, and a red dragon, they're going to need those resources. So that would be really important to ascertain before the battle. What kit do you have available along with your allies? So we have one of these encounters. We have designer notes here. Should we read that? We usually quite enjoy these, don't we? Because that is literally, well, all of this is the voice of the authors, but this is some notes to it to consider perhaps on how you might implement these scenarios. Designer's notes. By this time we expect the party to be 8th or 9th level, yet you'll notice that almost all of the battlefield events detailed here are encounter level 10 to 12. Okay, so it's talking about encounter levels, okay. So effectively it's just stating, listen, this is hard. So you should use the Lions of Brindle and the Tiri-Kator elves to bolster lower ranking parties, for example. Okay, that's fair enough. And a good point. And it also says there's danger outside the walls, which is really cool. So any point of this, this encounter is written and assumes the giants are alone, with the main body of the horde facing Jarmath's army on the western side of the city. We ain't doing it! We're not doing it, because we're not stupid! Are we? So, no. There's no danger outside. Well, there is danger outside the wall, but we aren't outside the walls. I refuse. I refuse to even address the fact that that's a possibility. Not in our game, dear viewers. We're not doing that. Save the walls. Exactly. Let's talk about saving the walls. The Red Hand's initial assault on the town of Brindol begins. If Lord Jarmath prevailed in the second phase of the defensive council strategy, which we didn't do, then the Lion Guard, House Carl Guard, and Tyrikator elves at present engage the horde in the farms. I'm so sorry. We're not doing that. No, we're not doing that. Soon great boulders begin to rain down upon the city walls. Before long, it becomes obvious that these attacks aren't intended to kill the guards, but destroy the walls. So the PCs are contacted by Lord Jarmath through the telepathic link. He tells them that two groups of hill giants are bombarding different sections of the city wall. He's ordered a sortie to take out a group, but cannot afford to divert a second group from the main battle. The player characters must engage the second group of hill giants on their own and destroy them. This is such a cool objective, and it's even cooler, I will state, if you decided to have all of the forces hold the walls. Okay, I know there's nothing directing the attention of the other groups of enemies, but I think that's pretty cool. We're talking about, in the darkness of night, we're talking about dispatching 4 adventurers into the unknown, into no man's land. I say 4 adventurers. We've always just said the hypotheticals, there's 4 of them, but whatever. We're sending out our player characters into the night to take out the giants, which is such a cool idea for an encounter. So take them out before they can ruin the walls, which is great. So 4 giants the PCs are tasked with killing have crept forward quietly under cover of darkness, taking up position on a lower hill about 500 feet south of the city gate. Each giant has an ample supply of throwing rocks and won't run out of ammunition before the encounter ends. The giants stand at least 20 feet apart from one another, making it difficult to catch them, all in spells. Okay, right, so you can't catch them all in a area of effect spell. And it says, look at hill giants stats in the monster manual. Well, we bloody will at some point, but not right now. We all have fielded hill giants. We know what they can do. Let's have a look. So tactics. Each round, unless the player characters interfere, each giant throws a boulder at the city wall. The wall has an armor class of -1, so even the giants take a -6 penalty on their attacks. Blah blah blah. This is all mechanical stuff that we can make ourselves familiar with when actually running this. Okay. So it's just take out the giants, and I think we all know what would happen there. Like, it would be really cool. The player characters would emerge, and an epic battle between them and these giants that are, as it's already said, they're positioned in a spot of their own, so it's not too wild to think that they could engage these giants without being attacked by the main force. I just love that idea. It's just such a shame because, like, my only thought is, if we're going out to take these giants out, instead there's a second group of giants that are just going to break in elsewhere. So I do wonder, I know with all of Red Hand Doom, there's sort of like an inevitability. It's in the name, isn't it? Doom, a judgment, like it's been made. The judgment has passed. This is going to happen. The Red Hand is going to sweep through. It's just, what are you going to do about it? So I know that we've been dealing with that quite a lot, but it is a shame that, like, you stopping the army at the gates isn't going to be stopping the giants isn't going to be rewarded, because they're just going to get through anyway. Unless what it is that your battlefield attack on the giants is enough to buy you time, so that when the dragon arrives, that gives you time to fight the dragon without having to worry about the army that's pouring through the city. The army is still trying to get in, so it buys you time to deal with Abithriax, the red giant, the red dragon. There we go. I think that's how I'd handle it. Again, dear viewer, this is what we're doing these videos for. This is for us to assess how we would run it, and how we would make sense of it. And that, to me, would be what I would go with. I would be interested to learn if you guys would think of something different to do there. to justify, like, because it would be so demoralizing if you go out and fight those giants. They're like, well, they got in the city anyway, you know. It's like, we weren't rewarded for that in any way. Whereas I think if you just defeated those giants and it caused that delay to allow you to fight the dragon, then yeah, that's what we would go with. Personally, that's what I would go with. And then speak of the dragon, and he will appear. Abithriax's Rampage encounter level 10. Although the player characters might have defeated their group of giants before they breached the city wall, the other defenders aren't so lucky. The second group of hill giants takes down an alarmingly large section of the wall on the western gate. But as we said, we will say that buys them time to get to the dragon, perhaps. At the same time, a horrific blast of fire explodes near the southern gate. The red dragon Abithriax has joined the battle. This event begins with a sudden brilliant blast of fire from the southern section of Brindol as the red dragon Abithriax blasts one of the buildings there with his breath weapon. Almost at once, the player characters received a panicked telepathic message from Lord Jarmuth, the ever-honourable, the fool, Jarmuth the fool, who confirms what the PCs might have already guessed. The red dragon has joined the battle. At the same time, the horde is pushing into the breach of the west wall. Lord Jarmuth's orders the player characters to slay the dragon, while his soldiers meet the bulk of the horde army in the breach of the walls. Okay, alright, that's pretty smart. I like that. That explains why we don't have an army helping us fight the dragon. Spot on. Fair enough. That's great thinking. And it just again shows that this is so well written and so well considered. So yeah, listen, we're going to go fight Abithriax then, guys. How do you think we're going to do that? Now, this says that Abithriax is a male juvenile red dragon, which is a particularly big dragon, as it goes. I would be encouraged to potentially make Abithriax worthy of that name. Abithriax. He sounds so cool. He should be a big boy. And we were talking about larger dragons before, weren't we? So maybe we could up the stakes a little bit here. A few groups of defending soldiers scramble to contain the fires, but none of them have a chance against the red dragon. If the PCs don't kill Abithriax, much of Brindol will be in flames before midnight. Abithriax flies in lazy circles around a small section of southern Brindol, swooping down low every 4 to 6 rounds to unleash another blast of fire and grab a few soldiers to crush in his jaws or drop from very high up, thinking that their long screams as they fall to their deaths will be bad for the defenders' morale. Can you imagine? They're doing what the Nazgul do against Gondor in their defense of Minas Tirith. They're just scooping up forces from the walls and just flying up and dropping them. Amazing. Really amazing. This nasty red dragon just throwing the defenders around. So the tactics is, as it said then, as soon as any of the player characters manage to score a solid hit on Abithriax or affect him with any significant offensive magic, the dragon abandons his strafing to concentrate his full attention on the PCs. Fools, he would say. His goal is to defeat this knot of resistance if possible, and at any rate to make the PCs expend the maximum amount of resources confronting him so they have fewer reserves to face Wormlord Khan's final attack. That is so nasty, and is what we were saying before. Like, we need to give the player characters time and acknowledge and make it clear to them, listen, you are just you. You're not going to be able to rest. This battle is going to take place on this night. You need to make sure that you have resources to your hand. Abithriax has already cast Mage Armor and Shield on himself, increasing his armor class by 8 to a total of 32. Listen, just make him bigger. Just make him a big dragon, you know. You want that image, don't you? A juvenile dragon is intimidating, don't get me wrong. But, like, you want the big shadow of a big dragon flying over, don't you? Anyway, he starts the combat by breathing fire on the player characters, and then swoops down to land near any spellcasters, especially clerics displaying holy symbols of good deities, or any other characters who have a good chance of affecting him at range. Smart dragon. Listen, dragons are really old, and they through their long years have learned how to stay alive, and one of the means of doing that is to kill things that have a chance of killing you, which is interesting. At this stage, he ignores fighters unless they seem to be able to hit him regularly. Yeah, so he's basically going to go after all the ranged characters, and then once they're dealt with, he can then just start doing flyby attacks where he's out of range. Sneaky dragon. Once his blood is up, Abithriax refuses to back down. This is the problem with dragons. They are wise, but they are also wrath. His stubborn nature and refusal to admit defeat is one of the traits that won him an honoured position with the Horde. And he doesn't retreat, instead dedicating his fate to Tiamat. Within his disdain for everything without scales, he cannot truly imagine that mere humanoids have the capability to defeat him. If, on the other hand, he succeeds in defeating the player characters, perhaps forcing them into hiding, he withdraws once he has started enough fires, either joining the main Horde if he is still in good shape, or retreating back to his camp to lick his wounds if he is seriously injured. See, listen, even within this massive battle, there's still time for characterization. The fact that Abithriax is, his hatred of anything that hasn't got scales, and the fact that he is filled with pride, and his disdain for these characters could very well be what brings about his doom, is pretty cool. So you feel justified in having him, go into a final stand. Like, that's just pretty special in my opinion. This module, man. Brindol in flames. And although the soldiers in the area are doing their best to put out the fires, the dragon has started so many conflagrations that they won't be able to contain the flames on their own, and they need the PC's help. Wow, so there's like a whole thing here about the player characters trying to quench some of the fires. Again, it might be a case of prioritizing other things, perhaps. I'm thinking about this. This whole battle will take sessions upon sessions, which I love. I really do love. Like, it's a campaign about a war, and as such, you are going through every gritty footstep of that journey. And it says that if Ulwise Stormcaller is alive, they will be able to cast a powerful windstorm. To spread the flames, of course. That would be a problem. The PCs must extinguish twice as many fires within the same time to halt the conflagration. And look there, behold, in all of his wrath, in all of his glory, there is the dragon himself, Abithriax, who looks bigger than a juvenile in that image. I just want to make that point, That's the image you want. You want a big dragon. He looks terrifying. Look at that image. Oh, look at that artwork. Buy the book, guys. Just for your own collection. It's out there. It's out there for you. I just completely got lost staring in that image. Apologies. Let me have a little sip and we'll continue. So, the development. We like the developments, don't we? Let's look at the development of this particular encounter. What happens once the battle is done with Abithriax. With Abithriax slain or driven off, the player characters have delivered their first great strike against the Horde during the Battle of Brindol. Wormlord Khan already knows about the characters, of course, but this is the point at which he realises he underestimated them. He does not abandon his plan of battle, but he shifts his focus towards the player characters increasingly in the remaining events. Remember, we were saying that the Red Hand were learning. They were hearing about these player characters. They were hearing about the hypotheticals that are continually causing issues and thwarting problems. The hypotheticals were able to evacuate Drellin's Ferry. The hypotheticals were able to destroy the bridge at the gorge. The hypotheticals were the ones that caused that nasty trouble with that lich that now is hampering us from the wastes, you know? Like, the hypotheticals have now slain a Bithriax. And what are we going to do about it? We're going to destroy them. The hypotheticals will burn in the fires of Brindol. So Wormlord Khan is on that and moves to destroy them. Once this event is over, the player characters learn from Lord Jarmath, the fool, that his troops have been pushed back. The enemy is now inside the walls. The defenders are relocating and regrouping, performing fighting retreats as the horde pours into Brindol. Already Jarmath has a new mission for the player characters. I wonder how many missions we have here. How many we're going to go through? Okay, so we've got the sniper attack there and the final battle. Okay, let's have a quick skim of what happens. Oh, right, this is like the crux of the fighting. So, the Streets of Blood. This event is the character's chance to take on a large number of low-level hobgoblins. Okay, so in a wave after wave assault on the main streets. Okay, so we already have established who we have in our force and roughly what's been happening with our particular battle. We have our soldiers with us as well. We have those Lions of Brindol, the Tirikator elves. We have our owls still, hopefully, if they've survived in the battle against Bithriax. The aerial battle against Bithriax, perhaps. I really would love to do that. Okay. Okay, so they basically, the hordes are basically coming at the barricades that the player characters have been able to have there. As we mentioned, if the player characters address the fact that, listen, what if they get inside the walls? We've got all this preparation already done, all of these palisades and things. Okay, so in order to hold the line, the player characters and their allies must defeat several waves of increasingly dangerous attackers, and if they've done well in previous chapters, they'll have less to face in this encounter. The goal of each wave of attackers is to reach the marketplace, located off the map behind the defenders. The PCs fail in this encounter if either of the following conditions is met. All of the player characters and their allies are defeated for this combat. If at any time there are no PCs or no allies on the map, they have been defeated. At least 20 enemies creatures manage to move off the map, past the barricade and into the marketplace. Oh, I like that. And I think being upfront with the player characters, upfront with the players rather, about those conditions would be really key. Because I think that would then evoke a sense of fair play. Just say, listen, if 20 characters, enemy characters, pass you, that is their victory condition. And we're then going to move on to what happens next. Which as well allows you not to get too bogged down as well, because running a number of battles, as I mentioned, the campaign that we've started recently, and what you can quickly learn is that you can get really hampered with lots and lots of different units fighting in a battle, and you kind of got to decide where to draw the line. Can be really cool and rewarding if done correctly. Can hamper you if you're trying to run like a session with lots happening for the players to be engaged in. If you're spending most of the session resolving everyone else's turn, well, player characters' thumbs begin to twiddle and twitch. Okay. So the Horde sends several waves of attackers at the PCs in this event. These are advanced shock troops, moving ahead of the main body of the Horde. And they allow each wave's resulting combat to play out. Then let 1d4 plus 2 rounds pass before the next wave arrives. Okay, so you've got a couple of rounds to heal. That's cool. So you're giving them time to use their healing magic and stuff like that. The pieces have just enough time to reposition themselves, cast some healing magic, and perhaps make some quick repairs to the barricade. But they won't have enough time to call in reinforcements unless they use magic, like Dimension Door, Summon Monster, and the like. Okay, cool. So the first wave consists of, and this is basically just going down what each of these waves are, which is once again really neatly organized as to what's coming at you. So it's shown us these waves. This is what's going down. Manticores, hobgoblin sergeants, and hobgoblin regulars. So we know those quite well. Those are sort of like the main force that we've really encountered with the Horde anyway. And as well, like, if you're being really meticulous about this and you're keeping track of basically every single force that the Red Hand of Doom has, if the player characters have been really successful in smashing the hell out of them in other areas, perhaps the Red Hand's army isn't as strong. And of course, depending on how well the wall defense went as well, you could say that has diminished these forces. So with a pinch of salt, we take these numbers. I say like Yoda. With a pinch of salt, we take these numbers. It's been a long day. So that's the first wave is Manticores, Hobgoblin Sergeants, Hobgoblin Regulars. The second wave consists of 8 Blood Ghost Berserkers. The PCs are unlikely to have encountered any of these bugbears before. Their appearance can be shocking. These berserkers dye their fur grey-white and utter ghost-like wails as their battle cry. Bugbears thunder onto the scene from the west and immediately charge the barricade, activating their barbarian's rage as they close. When they reach the barricade, they clamber over and attack those behind it. Oh my god. Can you imagine? Berserker bugbears, each with the benefits of rage. All that extra health, all that extra attack power. Wow. And do you know what's really scary about bugbears? Of course, yeah, these are berserkers in battle, but bugbears are deceptive. They're very sneaky, bugbears, and I think if you look at their stats, they're always quite stealthy for their size. So imagine if they came at you, first of all, really quietly, and then all of a sudden start screaming, and these ghost white furred bugbears just smash into your flank without you even knowing they've been there. Oh my god. Third wave. The third wave consists of 5 goblin warg riders, mounted on a terrible new addition to the battlefield. Blue spawn thunder lizards. Creatures Azor Cool, the High Worm Lord, has drawn into the material plane from Tiamat's court. The goblin riders are a little unnerved by their mounts, who would rather fight from warg back, but they do their best, the best they can. The thunder lizards storm up to the barricade, trying to tear it apart, while their goblin riders use their short bows and scimitars to attack anyone nearby. So if the player characters have done well in the previous parts of the adventure, in the final wave of enemies, they'll have to face in this event to secure a victory. Huh? If the PCs have done well in previous parts of the adventure, this is the final wave of enemies they'll have to face in the event. Gotcha. So they've already done well. This is effectively the last surge of enemies. However, let's just say, for argument's sake, that we're making it even more difficult for our expert player characters, our veteran players that we all know and love, that sit around the table with many years of service at the gaming table, with many years of experience as player characters. They know how to win fights in D&D. So let's just say that we're catering to their needs and they are ready for another wave. The fourth wave. If the player characters weren't able to disrupt the green spawn razorfiends, remember, in the hatchery in Rhest, by destroying those eggs, they're part of part 2 of this adventure. They face 3 of these dangerous spawn in the wave, along with a pair of Kulkazul Mindbenders. The Mindbenders are back as well. See what I mean? This whole chapter is effectively like harkening back to everything we've encountered so far. The hobgoblins let the razorfiends charge up to attack any obvious defenders while they hang back. One of them inspires courage and the other uses his spells and combat gear to throw the defenders into chaos. So there's green spawn razorfiends, 3 of those, and Kulkazul Mindbenders. And then the 5th wave. In this final wave, the PCs face several of the Ghostlord undead minions. If they manage to get the Ghostlord to withdraw his support from the Horde, either by killing him or returning his phylactery in part 3 of this adventure, this event does not occur. This wave consists of a group of 4 Ghost Brute Lions, 2 Ghost Dire Lions, and 5 Lesser Bone Drinkers. The undead are under the control of several nearby Doom Hand War priests, although these clerics hang back and do not make an appearance in this encounter. Okay, so that's sort of just like the narrative reasoning behind these undead being marshalled here. So, given what we were talking about last time, all the way back in April, the Ghost Brute Lions and the Ghost Dire Lions are, of course, under the control of the Ghostlord. I like the idea, if we explore this as if to say that we actually maybe brokered a deal with the Ghostlord, the Lion Lord. Because how cool would it be if you had the Ghost Brutes and the Ghost Lions sort of come in as support for you, as a reward for returning the phylactery to the Ghostlord, who could potentially become a villain later down the line. Perhaps you're not best friends with him, but as part of the agreement, he commits his Ghost Brute Lions to the battle. So it's kind of a little bit to reference the battle at Minas Tirith again. Like, this is perhaps like your version of the Army of the Dead, perhaps, sweeping through the forces and bringing an end to this section of the battle, which then means the battle is won, but we have many other things to address. There is a sniper attack. One of the Red Hand's most dangerous killers, a Black Spawn Raider Ninja. Let's say that again. A Black Spawn Raider Ninja, Scather, infiltrates the city and establishes himself in an abandoned house, whereupon he begins to snipe at important NPCs using his shortbow to great and terrible effect. Oh, do you remember how we were saying how Lord Jarmath is a fool? Maybe you would have a moment where his beloved Todora gets shot, and the thing that he feared the most happens, perhaps. And it's because she wanted to make the sacrifice to be part of the battle, not be held back by Lord Jarmath's selfish purpose. But in that happening, perhaps that reinforces his wish to have held the cathedral and not had his clerics go forth. See, do you see what I mean? Like, there's so much like potential that because we've set up these narrative stakes among the council leaders, that whatever happens in the battle, whether it be by your decision as a DM or putting on a dice roll, for example, having the Black Spawn Raider Ninja publicly make an attack roll against an NPC to see if they just get sniped. We know there's loads of moments in war films and in games as well where you have like a popular character just like suddenly a shot comes out of nowhere, and they're like the shock of it, like the grimness of war. That would be pretty cool, you know. That would be pretty devastating, I think. So this Black Spawn Raider Ninja and his 2 hobgoblins are basically shooting at people. And I think we have a little map here where he's taken up residency. Okay, so as the player characters near Cathedral Square, they hear outcries of alarm, screaming, and the sound of dozens of armoured soldiers running. When the PCs reach the square, they find the place in chaos as soldiers scramble towards the Cathedral of Pelor as if fleeing from some invisible army. Lord Jarmath has fallen to a sniper's arrow. Listen, I don't want to see great minds think alike, but I promise I didn't read ahead as well. I promise. Lord Jarmuth has fallen to a sniper's arrow fired from somewhere on the western side of Cathedral Square. I know it said he was taking out important NPCs, but that's quite a good one, isn't it? For it to take out Jarmuth, the fool. If he's not thrown his life away too early. Giving this guy a lot of shade, but I think he deserves it. So 3 more of his soldiers and aides fell to the sniper's shots before the rest managed to reach safety at the opposite end of the square, dragging the fallen leader with them. If you, like Norro, Whiston, or Ermistal the Red, can be among these victims as well. So yeah, pick a number of other people to be basically shot by this guy. Really sell the power of this, of Scather. Lord Jarmuth is now unconscious inside the cathedral. The poison on the sniper's arrow has reduced his strength to 0, and none of the clerics in the cathedral have any lesser restoration or similar spells or potions left to restore him to consciousness. The suddenness of the attack has demoralised the local soldiers. Rather than regrouping in preparation for Wormlord Khan's final attack, Jarmuth's soldiers have scattered, seeking cover. Every time someone tries to organise the troops to approach the western side of the square, another person drops dead, now lying in the streets, bearing silent witness to the assassin's deadly accuracy. If the sniper is to be removed, it's up to the player characters. How dramatic is that? Wow! We need to draw up our final defense against the coming Wormlord. That sniper has to be taken down. Go, go, go! Player characters are scrambling out. The sniper is a black-spawn raider ninja named Scather, the stealthy killer who stole the Ghostlord's phylactery from under the Glitch's rotting nose, and the Red Hand's most trusted assassin. He has come to Brindol to decapitate the defence. Oh, that is so cool, and that's exactly what I would do personally. Like, if I had like an assassin character, that's exactly what I'd suggest. I'd be like, yo, let's just cut off the head of the snake. Let's just take them out like that, so there's no leadership. And when there's no leadership, there is no defence. And when there is no defence, the Red Hand is victorious. Scather lurks in the upper floor storeroom of a coffin maker's shop. Fitting. Area 15 of the Brindle map, which we have here. Let's have a look. Just your basic coffin store there. Very nice. Plenty of them ready for the war. Well, they're going to be in business. Like, they're laughing. The people in the coffin maker shop are rubbing their hands together. They love the Red Hand of Doom. Doesn't make sense, but it's funny. The Blackspawn Raider isn't only the Red Hand agent within the building. 2 invisible Kulkazul war adepts lurk in hiding at the bottom floor of the building, with readied actions to cast lightning bolts on anyone who enters the building. You open a door, do a reflex saving throw as 2 lightning bolts careen towards you. Identifying which shop hides the sniper requires a successful spot check, opposed by Scather's hide check of plus 25 modifier, counting a plus 10 bonus for his improved cover. Wow. So, okay, that's why it's so high, because he's just basically inside a building. You wouldn't have no chance of seeing him otherwise. So Scather is a blackspawn raider ninja, as we discussed, and the Kolkazal War Adepts are going to start blasting spells. I just started blasting. Scather has an excellent view of the square from partly shuttered windows, while he himself has improved cover plus 8 armor class against any attacks launched from below, of course. Okay, so they basically have to lock down this assassin's position and take him out. How would you do it? That's what I'd like to know. Do let me know in the comments. We've got a display room, a rear office, workshop, meeting room, bedroom, storeroom. I personally would say that maybe someone got a look at... I know, because it says the Kolthazul War Adepts are invisible, so they wouldn't have seen them. So literally there's no way of telling that there's 2 lightning bolts waiting for you behind that door. That is... savage. Maybe if one of their soldiers goes in first, sir, allow me, and they rush in and bam, they get blasted by a lightning bolt. Downstairs, the 2 can't say their names, Kolkor Zul War Adepts each wait in different rooms. Oh, at least they're in different rooms, okay. And they have potions of invisibility and ready lightning bolts to cast. Yep, cool. Once the bolts go off, one hobgoblin follows up with a mirror image and then magic missile or lesser orb of electricity. The other hobgoblin uses his summon monster 4 scroll to summon 1d3 hellhounds and then joins his fellow hobgoblin in ranged spells against the PCs. Should the player characters instead enter through the side door into the workshop, the hobgoblin lets loose with his lightning bolt while another... Right, so they're basically prepared for anything. But the battle will sadly alert Scather. Scather's already placed caltrops on the stairs, so if anyone rushes up, they're caught by surprise by caltrops. And Scather is a deadly foe, but one who would prefer to live to fight another day. If he's brought below 30 hit points, he tries to flee. If he escapes, he returns all the way to the Fane of Tiamat. He considers only Azar Cool his superior and does not report to any of the lesser wormlords in this case. The PCs certainly encounter the ninja again in part 5 of the adventure, so I'm going to say that Scather, well, maybe killed one of their friends perhaps. So if we encounter him again at a later date, you know, there'll be real personal stakes there. I like that he's kind of like the Boba Fett in a way, like he's sort of like a hired assassin almost to the Empire in a way, like he's there taking out the evil forces, taking out the good forces rather, I should say, evil in his mind. So the final battle. As the battle draws to a close, General Khan leads a group of dangerous monsters and hobgoblins on a surgical strike against the Cathedral of Pelor. We haven't addressed the map in a little while, have we? I realised that I was thinking it was going to mention these other locations, which it can. Oh wow, look at that artwork. So let's have a quick address of the map, shall we? Let's bring that back up. Okay. So let me quickly work out where the cathedral is. I think I can see it on that map, but I would like to just double check. So we're going back to those that helpful locations section. Let's see. Oh, it's right up there. Oh dear. Here we are. Tell me that the cathedral is one of the locations on the map. Of course it is. It must be. Cathedral Square is 16. Here we are. So we look at 16. Okay. Yeah, I see it. Cathedral Square. And then 17 is the cathedral itself. The Cathedral of Pelor. The most distinctive building in Brindol is the Cathedral of Pelor. A massive structure with towers rising well over 100 feet in height. Supported by flying buttresses and intricately carved pillars, the cathedral is an impressive display of the religion's dominance over the city. Very cool. Well, I wanted to make sure we knew where this battle was taking place. So it's basically in the heart of the city, right there on the map at location 17. Good. Let's quickly scoot down. There we are. That was a bit quicker. So, the final battle is upon us. So, General Khan leads a group of dangerous monsters and hobgoblins on a surgical strike against the Cathedral of Pelor. The PCs must prevent Khan from destroying the cathedral and its priests. Again, we've got a handy victory condition there. As soon as Captain Elver finds the player characters, he gives them the news. Wormlord Khan is nearby. And he has gathered several of his most powerful remaining minions and is marching on the Cathedral of Pelor, intent on destroying it and removing critical clerical support from Brindol's defenders. Captain Ulverth and his unit have just returned from a harrowing battle to the north against Wormlord Khan and some of these creatures near the marketplace. They were able to kill a few giants in the last of the Manticores, but there's still quite a few creatures in Khan's personal entourage. Captain Ulverth estimates they have less than 10 minutes. Okay, before they arrive. Oh dear. So, again, it's all these little details. I should move the map away again because it tells us like the lighting again. Like it just says like bright, numerous, ever burning torches. So no visual disadvantage here at all. Wormlord Khan, 2 hill giants, 4 ogres, and possibly other wormlords, or the Ghostlord will be in this battle, which is pretty cool. You should strive to present this final battle as a desperate clash between the beleaguered defenders of Brindol and the savage Red Hand. As the player characters prepare for this battle, dozens of bleeding but brave soldiers, including any remaining dwarf mercenaries and the last of the lines of Brindol, form ranks in the square before the cathedral, facing the road leading north and the approaching horde. Captain Ulveth stands with the player characters, along with any of their remaining allies, ready to face Wormlord Khan and his forces. The advancing horde is heard minutes before it's seen. Horrifying howls, guttural roars, and dragonbone horns announce their arrival. When the hobgoblin army arrives, it does so from several angles at once out of the darkened shadows of rubble-strewn streets. The soldiers in the square brace for the impact, and in only a few seconds, the open area before the cathedral is a battlefield. Before the player characters have a chance to enter the fray, Wormlord Khan himself strides out of the chaos, his pathway cleared by hill giants and ogres that casually fling aside defenders with great sweeps of their weaponry. Khan is an imposing figure, a towering hobgoblin, nearly 7 feet tall, dressed in full-plate armour made from the scales of a red dragon and wielding a blood-slick greatsword. He calls out a challenge to the player characters in a voice hoarse with rage. Hypotheticals! Stand before Wormlord Khan! Stand before your death! Wormlord Khan is accompanied by 2 hill giants, 4 ogres. In addition to any of the wormlords, the player characters have already met but allowed to escape. So Ulwai, Sarvith, and Koth are at his side. Well, I think that we pretty much said that they were dead in our version, but if they weren't, then here they would be here. They would be here. Finally, if the player characters weren't able to dissuade the Ghostlord from joining the battle, the Lich is here as well, ready to lend his formidable powers to Wormlord Khan's whim. So this could very well be a decisive victory on the Wormlord's front, because if you haven't stopped a Lich from being part of this battle as well, that is a huge problem with ghost lions and a dragon and other powerful wormlords there as well. If you have not been successful at this point and all of these wormlords are there in that fight, this could go ill. This could very well be what it says on the tin. This could very well be the final battle. In part 4 of a 5-part campaign, this could be where it all falls apart. So, let's see what their strategies are. This adventure assumes that 4 additional combatants are not present, but if they are, this fight could become as much as an encounter level 15. In this case, you consider having all of the enemies start the battle already wounded or in some way. Well, if you wanted to be nice. There's some developments from the sniper attack. So by the time the PCs return to the cathedral after defeating Skay, the Lady Carla's arrived. Okay, cool. Tredora tends the stricken Jarmath. Meh, I think it should be the other way around, personally. I think Jarmath should see the error of his ways. The fool. If you think Jarmath is a fool, please feel free to put it in the comments. Look at that art once more. So look at him. Wormlord Khan's final attack on the cathedral square brings the Battle of Brindol to a bloody climax. Oh, the actual text starts here, so... Yep, so in this case you should consider having the enemy start wounded. Okay, alternatively you can have other allies come to the PC's defense. This is meant to be the final epic battle to bring this part of the adventure to a close. Not a complete overwhelming assault on the player characters by the horde. That's just a gentle reminder. Please don't send an army at them when they are this when they're in this situation. So you as the DM, we as the DM are describing the battle raging around this pivotal battle between the player characters and Wormlord Khan and his entourage. Wormlord Khan's primary goal in this encounter is to personally slay the player characters. He has ordered his giants to defend him and to make attacks as necessary, but they are not to rob Khan of any kills if it can be avoided. This bit of hubris might give the player characters the chance they need to survive. Again, character informing the decisions made in battle. I love this. So Wormlord Khan does not retreat from this battle. This is, in his eyes, a decisive moment in the war, and to abandon it is to invite death at the hands of Azar Kul, who is, everybody now, the High Wormlord. Okay. So there's the Wormlord, Hravek Khan himself. Okay. And they clash. The hypotheticals versus Wormlord Khan on the steps of the cathedral. So, once again, we are talking about victory points. And when we were talking about the elves, a number of conditions had to be met for that alliance to be successful. Sort of the same thing with the Ghostlord as well. They had to meet certain conditions to get certain effects. This is a battle that's decided on a point system. At least it can be. It's how, if you want to do it by the book and actually be like simulationist about this, which I think is very rewarding in its own way, then this is how you determine how the battle is decided. Although the PCs have slain Wormlord Khan and thus routed the hobgoblin horde in the battle for the cathedral square, this achievement does not by any means indicate victory. Thousands of hobgoblins yet live, and Brindol's army is nearly broken. The horde is motivated, highly organised army. While the loss of Wormlord Khan is a devastating blow, it is not a lethal one. Only a few hours later, the horde is regrouped outside the city walls, gathering under a new leader. Oh my god. This leader could be one of the other surviving Wormlords, or merely a Doomhand war priest, or even Emiya Sirani, if she escaped death in part 2. Oh, yeah. It's entirely possible that an hour before dawn breaks, the horde could surge back into Brindol for one final attack. If this renewed assault occurs, the armies of Brindol are doomed. Whoa. As the player characters are recovering from their battle and reveling in their victory over Khan, take a moment to go over their successes throughout the adventure. Each of their victories earn them a number of points, VP, victory points, as detailed below. Let's do a tally. If the PCs destroyed Skull Gorge Bridge at the end of part 1, award them 2 VP. Twist Tusk aided the PC, spoke with old Warkle Nor and convinced the giant to lead his people on a preliminary attack against the horde, award them 1 VP. We didn't go over that on the videos, but I do remember passing that. See, there's so much material in this that even though I'm going quite meticulously through this module, I say meticulously, quite a broad overview if we're honest, but that even though we're going over it, there's still more to use in your game. This is such a diverse, depthful campaign. So yeah, we've convinced a giant to help us as well. Evacuating Drellin's Ferry, the PCs managed to convince the leaders of Drellin's Ferry to evacuate the town before the horde reached them, award them 3 victory points. Busting a road blockade, we remember the road blockades, that's 1 victory point. Delivering the gold, if player characters sent the mercenaries gold off to the Hammerfist hulls, the presence of the Dwarf Company is crucial, award them 4 victory points. Tiri Kator Alliance, gaining the aid of the Tiri Kator Elves is a major victory for the player characters, since it not only bolsters the defender's strength, but it also gives Brindol an effective aerial force. The Alliance is worth 5 victory points. Disrupting the hatchery and destroying the eggs of the Razorbacks is 2 victory points. Disrupting the Ghostlord alliance by removing the Ghostlord support from the horde. The player characters score a major victory against the Red Hand, who would hope to rely on the Ghostlord's fearsome undead to break the Brindol morale. This is worth 5 victory points. Exposing Mia. Although she's only one person, Mia Serrani can do a lot of damage if she's allowed to escape. If the PCs caught or killed her, award them 2 victory points. An audience with the Defense Council also gains a victory point. If the player characters convince the Defensive Council to place troops behind the city wall, award them 3 victory points. Listen, I know I've made a huge fuss about this, but listen, those 3 victory points could mean the difference between Brindle's survival and destruction of the hand, of the Red Hand. What else? If the PCs brought up the subject of how to defend Brindle in the event that the city wall falls, award them 1 victory point. If the player characters are convinced the Defense Council to station the clerics in the Cathedral of Pelor, award them 2 victory points. Oh, you're getting more reward for placing the clerics in the cathedral. Okay. Personally, I would think bolstering your forces in the field is probably a better thing to do, but, whatever. Okay, we can go with that. Listen, at the end of the day, you're the one that makes the call, aren't you? So, personally, I would say, listen, you did a good job allocating those clerics where they were needed and kept the forces of Brindle alive longer. Even if they did then pass, it still meant they held out for that bit longer. And is worthy of victory points in his own right. Disrupting the Hill Giant Battery. If the player characters prevented the Hill Giants from breaching the city wall near the south gate, that awards them 2 victory points. Putting out the fires, so when the fires are spreading because of a Bithriax, they earn 2 victory points. Holding the Dawnway, if the player characters manage to hold the Dawnway against wave after wave of attackers, they prevent the horde from overrunning the whole city. This feat is worth 4 victory points. Catching the sniper, so killing or capturing the assassin, or defeating him, causing him to rout, I would say as well, is worth 2 victory points. Oh, it says merely driving Scather off does not gain any victory point award. Shit. They're quite, they're quite clear in that. Fair enough. Alright. Fair enough. I guess, yeah, because they want the morale of seeing the one that took down their lord, fool as he is, has been avenged. And then killing commanders. This is your bread and butter. This is your bread and butter right here. So, this is for all the dragons and all of the Wormlords that you've taken out throughout the duration of this campaign so far. So, Wormlord Khan is worth 8 victory points. That is a deciding factor, clearly. 8, wow. Wormlord Stormcaller, 6. Wormlord Sarvith, 4. Wormlord Koth, 2. Ebithriax is 4. Varanthian is 3. Regeriax is 2. And Ozyrandian is 1. I would argue that if you've upscaled those dragons, how I've often said you should, then maybe consider giving more victory points. If, for example, Ebithriax was a bigger dragon, maybe he should have a bigger reward. I don't know. Anyway, maybe you want to keep it that as close to the points as possible, because you need to attain a certain amount of points to be successful. As we see here, we have victory and defeat, which we're going to go over both to determine what happened. If the player characters are culminated... This is victory, sorry. If the player characters are culminated 40 or more victory points, the hobgoblin horde doesn't recover. After they flee Brindol, the monsters break up into warbands and scatter into the surrounding countryside. Skirmishes break out here and there over the next several days, but these are nothing that the Lion Guard can't handle. Lord Jarmath, recovering from his wounds, maybe, we'll see, invites the player characters and other key members of the Defense Council to a great victory celebration the day after the Battle of Brindol. This day, of celebration begins with a rousing speech by Lord Jarmath in the Cathedral Square, where he publicly thanks each player character by name. Take the time to play the scene out, and make sure to call out a couple of key actions of bravery, or even luck, that each player character displayed during the battle. Without the player character's help, hundreds of people would now be dead, and all of Brindol would be aflame. After this public speech, a tired Lord Jarmath asks the player characters to return with him to Brindol Keep. He then collapses and dies. No, I'm just kidding. Grim news has reached his ears, and he needs to call upon the player characters one last time to proceed to part 5. So, very optimistic, and yeah, they're right to point out that after such a massive event, you do need to call out the player characters. This is as much a reward for their characters as gold and magical items, because you are saying that your actions and your decisions led to the salvation of Brindol and the breaking of the Red Hand of Doom, effectively. Everything that you've been working towards from the previous parts of this campaign has led to this point. You should make a huge deal about the fact that their victory was well earned. And yeah, definitely point out and do your best to remember when player characters have those epic moments, to call back to them, to bring those moments back into the forefront of the minds of all the players, and of course yourself running the game, because those are the moments that you'll remember forever. There are moments that I remember from games where there was a particular heroic action that happened that changed the course of the entire game, and we talk about it to this day, you know. So I think the Battle of Brindol has potential for multiple amounts of those kinds of moments. So do keep note of the rad stuff your players do. Defeat. I'm going to take a swig before this. If the player characters have earned less than 40 victory points, all might not be lost. Lord Jarmath remains unconscious, and Lady Carl, after consulting with the remains of the Defence Council, decides to take advantage of the temporary reprieve granted by Wormlord Khan's death to abandon the city. A small band of brave soldiers under the command of an NPC of your choice volunteer to remain behind and to hold off the horde a little longer, while the rest gather their wounded and flee along the Dawnway towards Denovar. If the player characters have come close to 40 victory points, they might be able to save Brindol. The horde takes 1d4 plus 1 hours to regroup and attacks in the last dark hours before dawn. If the player characters manage to kill enough of the named commanders to put their victory point total above 40, the horde breaks and Brindol is saved. On the other hand, if their total is less than 40 points, even after they kill all the commanders present, then there's nothing they can do. So even then, like, there's a last chance where, like, if they do like a mad dash and desperately try and effectively do what Scather was doing to the forces of Brindol, like take out key leaders, they might have a chance. But then the module is quite clear that after this, if it still doesn't meet 40, if they weren't able to hold the Dawnway or disrupt the giant battery or catch the sniper, if they weren't able to evacuate Drellin's Ferry, if they weren't able to forge an alliance with the Tiri Kator, if they weren't able to destroy the bridge or disrupt the Ghostlord alliance, then defeat falls upon the player characters and Brindol. In this case, the horde invades again and puts Brindol to the torch. The Cathedral of Pelor is raised, and Brindol Keep is looted. The one thing that saves those who decide to flee to Denovar is the fact that the horde takes a few days to plunder and torch the city before continuing its westward march. Lord Jarmath contacts the player characters and thanks them for their aid, but he is unable to hide the bitterness and despair in his voice. There is no ceremony, and this meeting is rushed and probably conducted from a sickbed, as clerics tend to their leader's poison wound. Yet before he and his soldiers abandon their home, he asks the player characters to stay a bit. He has learned something new, something dire. He has learned that what they have seen so far is little more than an advanced scout for the true horde proceed to part 5. And that, my dear viewers, I think is a great place to leave it. So, as I mentioned, this is a culmination of pretty much all of your actions, and will very much determine your chances when it comes to the final part, the Fane of Tiamat. And there we see that amazing imagery of the dragon goddess herself. That is really, really exciting and really well organised. It can seem overwhelming when you're dealing with massive amounts of forces. It can seem overwhelming for a DM to have to handle that kind of thing. But that, I think, puts the players in the forefront of the action, so you have a really zoomed in perspective of the battlefield. I like the idea of being able to order around other forces in the battle, but when push comes to shove, the victories that you get with those victory points is key to all of it, which puts a numerical. I know story-wise it's cool because we have all of these reasons why that, you know, through our actions we have supported the defense. But I like that there's like a point value to it. I like that it's not just us making it all up. There are rules to this game. There are conditions we have to meet. So you have to be smart about it. And there is a definitive yes and no. There is a definitive earning of this victory. You aren't just given victory. You have to earn it in the Red Hand of Doom. And what has that earned the hypotheticals? Where are they going to bring an end to this threat? And it would be a good idea for us to decide whether or not we think the hypotheticals won the Battle of Brindol. Because I have a feeling that is going to seriously affect how the next part goes. Given everything that we have learned through our exploration of these modules, what do you think, dear viewer? Do you believe that the hypotheticals, how we've described it, would have won? Would you have won? Like, if you're thinking about how you would run this or how you would have played in this, do you think you would have managed it? Like, there's quite a lot of boxes to tick, really, to get like a really good victory point score. The other cool thing is, as well, is that I guess the Dungeon Master can decide their own victory points as well, can't they? Because as much as, you know, we love this material, at the end of the day, like every module, it is a guideline. We do take this information, assimilate it, and then present it to our players. So there will be interactions, there will have been moments that have happened organically with the creativity of the players that could have created other means of finding victory. That should certainly be rewarded as well. So you would have to think about how many victory points you would offer to other things that could have been beyond that. But like I say, I think I think it would be cool for us to maybe decide whether or not Brindol was it was victorious, if Brindol was saved. So I don't know. Maybe if you would like to vote in the comments, we will, when we do this next. And I know I said last time that it wouldn't take long for me to be back, but I promise this is the end of a year and the start of a new one. As I release this video, I really, really intend to do more of these. And I think I'm in a position where I'm going to be able to do it more regularly. I know I said that last time, so you can take that with a pinch of salt. I know I don't blame you if you don't believe me, but I'm going to hope and pray that I get to do more of these sooner. And with this being the last part as well, wow. I'm not going to scroll down, but I believe that the final part isn't like a coda. I think it's quite involved, It might involve it being another two-parter, like this, like Act 4 has been a two-parter, isn't it? So I dare say the same will be for this next one. I don't know. So maybe there's 2 other videos, maybe there's 1. I will have to look into it. But if in the comments you would like to say whether or not you think that we should go forward thinking that Brindol was won or lost, that would be really cool. I would love to hear if you would change the material in any way. Like, would you interpret the material in a different way? Would you make any decisions as a player that would have been different? Would you change the enemy types? Would you frame the battles in different ways? Would you have put your forces outside of the wall? If you did, then you probably won't be able to put anything in the comments because you'd have been slain. Slain before the walls of Brindol. No, I'm just messing. Let me know if you would have put the troops outside of the walls. I'd love to know your reasoning. I think that's about it. I'm just rambling now. I'm really, really impressed with this module. I know I always say it. I know I always gone about the strength of the material, but genuinely everything is thought out. Everything is considered, and it is so satisfying that, as I was mentioning, every payoff is earned in this game. Nothing just happens. Everything is set up, and it is only paid off if the players' actions have paid off, based on their decisions as individuals, as players in the hit role-playing game that we all know and love. Let me know what you think in the comments about everything that had transpired in this part. Please, if you would like to see more like this, give this video a like. If you would like to see more like this, then give us a subscribe. Don't forget to check out on Performance Check that a new campaign is coming very soon. It is the sequel to the last long-running 3.5 campaign, Knights of the Apocalypse. This one is entitled Omen War, and it's very much inspired by the materials of 3.5 from our examinations into the Let's Dig Up series. Looking back at modules like this, admittedly not quite as good as this, because this is the best one. This is easily the best module I've ever seen, but inspired like that, and about the warfare and the trials and tribulations that are similar to this. Don't hesitate to go and check out that campaign series that is starting very, very soon. With all that said, thank you very much for watching, and I hope that all of your performances are up to standard.